and I think that's what a painter should always do, right? Find, like, be honest, like, in a way, like, in your context, in your, like who are you and what do you like, right? Because you don't want to be a copy of someone. You want to be you.
Welcome to the BoldBrush show, where we believe that fortune favors the bold brush. My name is Laura Orengo-Bear, and I'm your host. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we are a podcast that covers art marketing techniques and all sorts of business tips specifically to help artists learn to better sell their work. We interview artists at all stages of their careers, as well as others who are in careers tied to the art world in order to hear their advice and insights. On today's episode, we sat down with Raul Campos, a neo-Baroque painter whose work features dark, multi-figurative scenes in an effort to reach timeless iconography. He tells us all about why he became a painter and how studying with Odd Nerdrum affected his work. He also emphasizes the importance of developing your personal voice through honesty and reflecting on your own culture rather than copying others. He also gives us the valuable tip of world building within your own paintings to create a consistent universe that ties all of your work together. Finally, Raul talks about some of the challenges of the art market, balancing creativity with commercial considerations, understanding the value of art, and the unique cultural and social aspects of the Mexican art scene. Welcome, Raul, to the BoldBrush show. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I speak English.
Oh, yeah, and it's been a while since we last saw each other. I mean, we saw each other last week because we ran into each other, but the listeners don't know that we actually briefly studied together at Angel Academy, so it was nice catching up.
Good old Florence.
Yeah, good old Florence. But yeah, so I want to talk to you, of course, about your work and about all of your experience, because now you're selling your work and your work is massive and it's really beautiful. But before we dive into that, do you mind telling our listeners a bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm Raul Campos, and I'm, of course, a painter, you know. And mainly, I consider my work like neo-Baroque. I mean, it's a bit of a joke in a way, because it looks Baroque, but it's contemporary, so I just added a neo.
Mhm.
I live in Mexico. What else? See, this is where it gets complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, neo-Baroque is a very good description because
that's
your
me.
work, yeah, because your work is it's figurative, multi-figurative, actually. You have a lot of figures usually in your work, and it's
Lately,
also,
yes.
yeah, and it's quite a bit dark, kind of like the Baroque paintings. Very, I guess, tenebrous in some cases, and in other cases not so much, but there's still that Baroque sort of feeling to them, which is really cool.
No, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I wanted to know, when was the moment that you decided, okay, I want to be an artist, I want to be a painter?
Well, the thing is, my story is a bit of a cliche, right? Because I was the kid who was always drawing at school, and you know, so I've always been very into that. But when I was like 15, I met like this artist, like this painter who was already selling, and like he had so much shows in Mexico, and he was like, you can come to my studio and study with me, like for free, a bit of like what Nerdrum does, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, fantastic. So I started there, like learning basics of drawing, or you know, mainly how to live as an artist. I think that was, and that you could actually be an artist and have a life, like a nice life out of it. So I think it was then, like when I was 15, that I was like, you know what, I want to do this. But the question was like, how I'm gonna tell my parents, right?
Yeah.
Because it's always like a bit complicated. So when I told them, they were like, "No, you have to study something else. You're gonna starve." And I was like, "No." So in a way, I was always very firm into my decision.
Mhm,
No,
mhm. Yeah, and you're not starving, so that says a lot.
well, not yet, not yet. At the beginning, I was.
Oh yeah, I think that's pretty normal. Um, but yeah, as far as I know, and from what I've noticed, you're doing quite well, especially with the Mexican market, which seems to really love your work and also really love we're starting to really love more realism, which is kind of unusual for Latin America. I feel like Latin America is very behind in the realism world.
Yeah, but, well, we're very close to the United States, right?
Mhm,
And there's many painters who have been to the States who have been to Europe, like Diego,
mhm,
and we're all like bringing this school to Mexico. So there's a lot of young like yourself right now, right?
mhm,
So it's interesting, and the clients are very tired of this abstract, well, not abstract, but the contemporary, market, which can
mhm,
really be very confusing. And also because there's very Catholic values, Christian values, like a very religious country, right?
mhm.
And I think that really impacts the collectors, because they want like stories in their houses.
Yeah,
And well,
yeah.
that's where I come in. Yeah,
Yes, that's where
storyteller.
you come in. Exactly, exactly. Um, and speaking of, because when we met, I remember you hadn't studied with Odd yet, and you would always talk about Odd. Why did you decide to study with Odd, and how has your work evolved since you left Odd Studio?
Well, like I've always been a huge fan of Odd's work, yeah,
Mm,
since I was a kid. Uh, but then I when I we were when we were in Florence, I found out that he had like a school, right? And I was like, oh, it's crazy. I've never heard of this, because in
mhm.
Mexico nobody knew about the Nerdrum school, and
Right.
because they weren't very present in social media or anything. It was like a very, you know. So I was like, I'm just gonna email them and see what happens, because I still had like a semester to finish in the Angel.
Mm.
Well, but then I sent the email and then they replied like an hour later, like, oh, you've been accepted in October. And I was like, what? Fuck. So I had to like arrange everything. I never finished the Angel Academy because of that,
Mhm.
because I left before the like I never did the still lives.
Oh, nice.
Oops. But anyways, talking about my experience with Odd, I think it's very interesting because in a way the angel or the academies teaches you, no, they teach you how to do the work, right? The
Mhm,
how. But I needed to find like the why. And I think Nerdrum is very, very good with that, because it makes you question many things. Like it's
mhm.
not so much a technique school, right?
Yep.
It's more like a philosophy sessions, psychology sessions, moral, challenges.
Yeah.
You can, right? So I think that's what helped me like find like what I wanted to do, which is create like these contemporary icons of the Mexican culture, right?
Mhm.
But with like very subtle, like like you would have to really know or pay attention to the work to realize it's in a very Latin American context, right?
Right.
I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe a long answer.
No, it's a good answer. And I completely agree with you. That I had the same experience, going to Odd, where you obviously he's not there to teach anyone. He expects us to already know what we're doing when we go there.
Yeah,
But yeah, I definitely also was able to sit around in the why a lot longer than the academies really let their students. I feel like academies almost don't let their students consider the why ever, which can be
no,
really
no, no.
yeah, it can be really difficult. Because then once you're done at the academy, it's like, what the hell do I do?
What now? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I completely agree. I feel like your work is definitely it definitely touches on a lot of the cultural aspects of Mexico, but with a nice blend of the, I guess, the more European sort of classical
Yeah.
way of doing things. It's a really nice blend of the two.
Yeah, I'm trying to represent the madness of this country in a way.
That's a
This
nice way
is
of putting it.
yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of, what was it so how have you personally tried to find your own voice, right? Because we just talked about how, like, being with Odd helped you with the why, and then, of course, the Academy's help with the how. What was it like for you after when you were trying to find your personal voice? What was something that really helped you?
I think always like I was talking to this painter the other day, a good friend of mine, actually my first teacher, which is now my friend. Like,
Mhm,
and I was in his studio, which is close by, and we were talking about honesty. And I think that's what a painter should always do, right? Find
mhm,
like be honest, like in a way, like in your context, in your like who are you and what do you like, right? Because you don't want to be a copy of someone. You want to be you. Like I don't know if that makes sense, but just I think Harold Speed. Have you read the Science and
yeah,
Practice of Drawing? First? And he talks about the that if an artist have like this impulse, he should always follow it, like,
mhm, mhm,
because that's what's gonna define his work. And in a way, that was I've always been very curious about textures and like madness. So and also I'm Mexican. Like I cannot paint like I try not to paint like these classical stories like the Greeks because it has nothing to do with me. Like
mhm.
has nothing to do with the place I am in. I mean, I have some classical paintings, but in a way, right now I'm trying to paint more like what I'm seeing. You know, the contemporary icons. Because there's a lot of things, and I think every country has their own identity, which is
Mhm,
what a painter should follow, right? Instead of trying to copy the great masters who have painted these great paintings of classic, you know.
mhm.
So that yeah, I think that's pretty much what I'm trying to do. I haven't really achieved it like so, but I mean, there's a long life, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a lifelong pursuit. Even I remember even Odd, saying that even now he's not done yet, right? And he's like 80. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah, of course.
definitely, yeah, it's
Well,
a it's a lifetime.
he was a social painter before.
Yeah, yeah, he definitely changed a lot in his
Oh, yeah, of
style
course.
and in his themes, and I mean, obviously he just gets better and better, which is what we all hope for as
Yeah, that's
painters.
impressive. I
Yeah.
know
Um,
I cannot. Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, I remember one time I asked him, it's like, "How many paintings have you painted?" And he looks at me really tired and he says, "Don't ask me that." Because he's
Yeah,
probably painted so many, um, many that we've probably never seen and might never see.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that says a lot, that because, as artists, that's and as painters, we're always seeking that improvement and always seeking that, moving forward and seeing it
Yeah,
as a whole journey.
but I think that's what you should always try to do. Like
Mhm.
many painters find like this commercial style and just stick with it
Yeah,
until they die. And,
yeah.
and I think that's what, like I because I know many that are like in
Mhm.
this golden cage, which is a bit sad because as a painter, I think you're always as a person you're always changing. And as I was telling you before,
Mhm.
honesty. If you're honest with yourself, you know you're changing, and you know your painting has to evolve, even if you don't sell anymore, because that will happen eventually. You know?
Mhm, mhm.
So and I mean, money has to always be like secondary. I think in the way of
Yeah.
painting, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you sell what you do, then great, but don't try to paint to sell. I think that's yeah. And Odd has done it fantastically. I think once he gave me like this advice, which I'm still trying to decipher,
Mhm.
was like you should always paint like you're drowning. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
okay,
That's really great advice. I'm gonna have to
yeah,
sit with that one too. Um,
but
but
maybe like
yeah,
if it's your last, I don't know, Odd.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He speaks in riddles sometimes.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah, it's great because it also leaves it very open to interpretation, and I guess you interpret it how you need it in that moment, and then when you revisit
Yeah,
it, you reinterpret it, and you're like, oh, it's this thing, or oh, it's that thing, but it still makes sense. Like it's
he's like
genius.
the oracle in the Matrix, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly, he is. Um, but yeah, I completely agree. I think, our pursuit as painters as and as creators is very much about discovering ourselves and discovering the world around us and expressing it. And I completely agree that if it's possible for anyone to like sell what they're painting and they do great, awesome. Like you, of course. But if someone is, bending themselves to the will of the market, I like that you called it a golden cage, because it can be, because the person, the artist, is put in a position where they can, get money for what they do, but maybe they don't
Mm.
feel fulfilled, right? Because they're
Yeah,
stuck.
yeah, it's very dangerous. And then
It
you
is.
you have to always improve within this line,
Mhm.
so you don't get like cast out of the market. I don't know, like the art market is very, very tough.
It is. Yeah, I recently spoke to an art dealer precisely about the art market, and he said that it's basically an aristocracy, and you don't really know
Yeah,
what rules you're breaking until you break them. And
yeah,
that's when you find out it was a rule, which is very true. And also the art market is so, I guess it has its own rhythms that are managed by like a few
yeah,
people that it one day you're like in style and the next you're not. And that's kind of what happened to Rembrandt also in his time, where at the beginning he was very, very popular. And then at the end of his life, Rembrandt was like, who even cares about that guy? Right.
yeah, yeah.
Which is unfortunate
That's
because he was a wonderful craftsperson, a wonderful painter.
yeah,
Um,
but he was an antique uh,
yep.
buyer, right? Obsessively antique buyer.
Yeah, he was a
And
collector as well. So it
that,
probably didn't
yeah,
help. Yeah,
yeah,
he probably had a lot of
yeah,
expenses.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, and I think that's what Nedrum does very well because he doesn't paint for, he paints for eternity, but I would call it to transcend, right?
Yes.
And I think that's what you should do, and that's why it's
Mhm,
very important to reflect your reality in your work.
mhm,
Because
mhm.
in a way, people are gonna look back to it and they're gonna be like, oh, this is how it was somehow. In a way, instead
Yeah,
of he painted the Greek gods for 100th time. No, it's like no, man, he,
right.
he painted this contemporary icons, which is I think that's well, I mean that's what I'm trying to do, and I think
Mhm,
that's what Neptune did.
yeah. Yeah, because Odd's narratives are timeless, right? You can look at the painting and
Yeah,
it isn't necessarily a story that everyone knows, but it's a story we can all resonate with, right? Which is what matters. And I
yeah,
think your work
and
also does that.
sometimes his work is very post war and
Yeah, it
or
is.
very oriented to work. I
Yeah,
love
lots
that.
of people with guns. It's
Yeah,
very
rifles,
post-apocalyptic because
starvation.
it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's people in rags and guns and
prophetic.
yeah. Like I hope I don't live there one day. That would be really depressing.
Uh, I
Um,
know.
but it would be very funny if his images became like true, right? That would be crazy.
Uh, yeah, I hope not.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to technique actually. I wanted to know if you have, because you also had some students in your studio for a while. And I
Yeah.
wanted to know, do you have any advice for an artist who's looking to improve at their craft?
Well, I think you would have to find like okay, so if you want to paint still lifes
Mhm,
or whatever, but I always suggest like you have like a reason to do it, not just do it because the sake of doing it to improve, right?
mhm,
Maybe you want to make this painting which requires some fruits. So you're gonna okay, I'm gonna paint fruits now. I'm gonna become good so I can add them to my painting later, right?
mhm.
And I think that gives you like purpose. Because
Yeah.
if not, exercises can become very boring.
Mhm,
Or like if you're in an atelier, it's easier because you're forced to do it. So you
mhm.
have no other choice, right? But if you're at
Right.
home, you can be like, why am I gonna paint a Barbie? Why on earth did I do that, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Maybe you
that's
want to
true.
learn shading because you want to do a portrait. I don't know. I think I would say that.
Mm.
Find like a purpose.
Yeah. At BoldBrush, we inspire artists to inspire the world because creating art creates magic, and the world is currently in desperate need of magic. BoldBrush provides artists with free art marketing, creativity, and business ideas and information. This show is an example. We also offer written resources, articles, and a free monthly art contest open to all visual artists. We believe that fortune favors the bold brush. And if you believe that too, sign up completely free at boldbrushshow.com. That's BoldBrush show.com. The BoldBrush Show is sponsored by Faso. Now more than ever, it's crucial to have a website when you're an artist, especially if you want to be a professional in your career. Thankfully, with our special link, faso.com/podcast, you can make that come true and also get over 50% off your first year on your artist website. Yes, that's basically the price of 12 lattes in 1 year, which I think is a really great deal, considering that you get sleek and beautiful website templates that are also mobile friendly, e-commerce, print on demand in certain countries, as well as access to our marketing center that has our brand new art marketing calendar. And the art marketing calendar is something that you won't get with our competitor. The art marketing calendar gives you day by day, step by step guides on what you should be doing today, right now, in order to get your artwork out there and seen by the right eyes so that you can make more sales this year. So, if you want to change your life and actually meet your sales goal this year, then start now by going to our special link, faso.com/podcast. That's faso.com/podcast. Yeah, that's a very good point. Having that purpose and that intention of why am I doing what I'm doing and how is it going to benefit my work? That's a very good
Yeah.
point. Yeah. Yeah. And then actually I wanted to ask you about your social media. I think I know that you have someone who manages your social media for you. But in any case, I wanted to know how you use both social media and offline ways to get your work more well known.
Well, I'm a very, very curious because I'm very into digital minimalism. Like, there's actually like a whole philosophy about that.
Mhm.
And I know Instagram or social media sometimes can be very counterproductive because they give you ideas. Like, I remember Harold, Charles Witt,
Yeah, I do.
right? So it was very funny. I'm sorry, I'm going back to that question, but it's
You're
important
good.
because we went to this workshop. Actually, I went with Diego Glazer, and it was very funny because we wanted to show Charles like images of paintings. Like, have you seen this painting? And he was like, no, 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 I don't see internet images because they corrupt my ideas. And I was like, yeah,
Oh,
that makes
wow.
sense.
Yeah.
And in a way, I try. I mean, I sometimes fail, but I try to
Mhm.
do that, right? Because in order to create like, I'm gonna call it original, even if it's not original, but to create my work, I don't want to have like influences from things, right? Like only me. That way I can create like compositions because sometimes Instagram like really feeds you. But anyways, but it's very important and you need it. It's like this double-edged sword, I would say.
Mhm.
Because I have found many clients and collectors or galleries through Instagram. So but there's alternatives like Meta Business Suite, or
Mhm.
that you can actually post without actually being online.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can because you
sorry,
can just schedule
it's
a
like a
post. No,
rant.
you're good.
Yes, it's because I'm like very into that. But it's
Mhm.
hard because you have to live like a double life, right? Because many people like have you seen the message I sent you on Instagram? I'm like, no, but I have to ask the person who helped me, hey, what's this, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, it's not, but I always suggest that you should have your like I'm gonna call it your corporate image in order, right?
Mhm.
Because you need like a website. I think you need a good website. It's essential.
Mhm.
You need a good Instagram page, maybe a Facebook page, even though Facebook is like, you know, or YouTube, like, because that's your presentation card, right?
Mhm.
If you go to a gallery, you're like, yeah, you can see my website, which is like faster, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think I always tell my students they should do that. They never do, but they should.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yes.
guess because I guess because it's like once you have your website, it becomes very real, right? That you're now an artist and you have a
Yeah,
portfolio and you have to have images for your website.
yeah,
So it
and
becomes
then you can
very
see your
real.
yeah, but I think you have to have a.
Mhm.
But it's like just be careful with it. Just have it. Like I try to keep my cell phone locked in a cabinet, the top corner, and I use this phone. It's actually my phone.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's like an early 2000s phone type where
Yeah,
it's like
I
no
can text and
internet, just
call.
texting. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's all you need. Communication.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's also so exhausting to have, like, basically a tiny computer always available because,
Plus,
it really messes with your memory, it messes with your brain, it messes with your sleep.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm
Especially
totally with
studies.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with Charles Weed. I mean, it's like, "Oh, no. No, I don't wanna get influenced."
But
And
it's
it's
hard.
true.
It's hard to live like a hermit life.
It is, but, huh, now I kinda wanna try it.
Yeah, sure. Boring.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
and
I love
you know,
boring.
and that's something actually
Mhm,
Nerdrum told me once. Like he was like, it's a shame that your generation doesn't know how to get bored anymore. And I was like, yeah, that's true. Because
mhm,
he used those stories when he would travel to the States and things. He
mhm,
just sat on the plane with nothing to do, sketching, creating ideas, or on the trains, right?
mhm, mhm.
And yeah, right now we just sit and watch a TV, and then we appear in another place. But I think he's right. Like we lost the ability to get bored,
Mhm.
like really bored. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, when I think of, like, for example, like, writers during the Romantic period, right? So, like,
Mm.
the Bronte sisters, Jane Austen, like, all of these people who had absolutely nothing else to do, right? They had no way of
Yeah,
listening to music, right?
I
Like,
know.
today, it's so easy, you just go on Spotify, go on YouTube, put music, and we never have a moment of silence. Whereas I think
No,
I agree, having that silence and that meditative sort of forced time to be with your thoughts is really important as a creative
well,
person.
Rembrandt, Da Vinci, all of the great painters, they didn't have music
Yeah,
in their studios.
exactly.
Nothing else to do but paint.
Mhm.
Actually, quite interesting. If you try to paint in silence, because I've been trying it lately. So weird.
Yeah, I bet.
But I mean, I did it because of a friend of mine. He's older. He's like 70.
Mhm,
He's a painter also. Like
mhm,
he's actually he's an abstract painter, but he's very good. And he told me he doesn't paint with music because music influences his like hand movements. I'm
mm,
like, that's very interesting. So he's always
yeah.
trying to control it. And I'm like, well, maybe because music is a stimulant.
Mhm,
And if you
mhm.
actually just learn to be present with the painting, it becomes like that. I mean, you should try it once. It's just so weird.
Yeah. I would probably worry that, my ears will start bleeding from the silence, but
I know.
but it should be great. I'll
Yeah.
let you know once I try it. Um, but yeah, I also wanted to know because you do have, quite a bit of collectors and, do you work with galleries as well?
Yeah, yeah, I have a couple of galleries.
Okay, cool. Because I wanted to know, how do you,
Yeah,
manage, working with galleries and maintain those relationships with the galleries and with collectors?
I think it's very important to realize that. I mean, okay, this is very complex, but the price of a painting is based on really nothing, right?
Mhm.
Like a stock. It's
Yeah.
based on the demand, right? So it gets higher, but so galleries, and many people are like very afraid of giving like a huge percentage to the gallery because they take like half of your money,
Mhm.
right? But then if you go back and you think, okay, but this thing I'm doing doesn't really have a value, and these guys are going to create a value for it, and then they're going to sustain the value because if they ask someone, this gallery says the price is this, so it's very important for your career to have like a good gallery, you know,
Right.
and yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's really not much, just work
Mhm.
and always try to be responsible. Don't go behind the gallery's back. I think very essential things because it happens a lot.
Mhm.
Clients are always like, no, I'm gonna go to your studio and I'm gonna pay you like, but let's do it outside of the gallery because that way, you know,
Yeah.
cheaper. But I'm like, no, because if I do that, I'm gonna harm my other collectors, right? Because you're gonna be
Mhm.
paying less than they are, and that's not fair, right? So I always try to keep like very ethical pricing,
Mhm.
and that's why I've been able to work with like, a lot of galleries. Because well, no, a couple, not a lot. Just because I try to be very honest with. I mean, it's just okay. But it's a business in a way. I mean, I love painting and I love what I paint, but in a way, I also know it's a business in a way. So balance both of them.
Yeah.
Like you're like a construction worker, but you're also the house dealer.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I also noticed that at least since I've been here in Querétaro, the lifestyle is much more social. Do you find that you have a lot more time to be able to be social with your collectors here?
Yeah, but yeah, collectors are very social in Mexico. They
Mhm.
love having lunches and parties and all that stuff, and they love to show off. It's very funny.
Yeah.
Can I make this museum? Like I have this client who's making like this private museum of his work. It's just a
Mhm.
fantastic museum, just because it's like. But but they love. I mean, they love the experience of talking to a painter with this.
Mhm.
And there's something you probably noticed. It's very funny here that everybody calls you like master,
Yeah. Yeah.
like like like. But even collectors are like maestro, you know.
Yes.
But it's funny because there's like this like intrinsic like society's respect for society. I don't know how to this respect for painters. Like they see
Mhm.
them like with respect, which is it's very cool. I mean, it didn't happen anywhere else. At least I've been the place I've been. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
in a way it's
that's a
like
good
going
point.
back in time.
It is, yeah, that's very true. It's happened to me here too, where people seem to. It's almost like how they call doctors doctor, right?
Yeah,
So it does kind of feel like a really nice, I guess, like term of like respect because they
Mhm.
realize that it's a difficult career. It's something that you've studied for. It's something that you've put in a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
hours for. In other countries, they don't. It's like, oh, you're an artist. Oh, you poor thing. you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny here, and Querétaro is especially like
Mhm.
strange in that. I mean, Mexico in general. There's also like painters pay with paintings their
Yeah.
taxes here. Yeah,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah. It's not paying with money.
Yeah, that's great. I guess if anyone's interested in coming to Mexico, now they know why. Uh,
They should come here.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that happened because this painter, I forgot his name, but
Mhm,
he was a good friend of the president of Mexico back in the day. He
mhm.
was like, hey man, like, you know, help the brother out. And then
Oh,
they changed the legislation to make like painters don't pay taxes, like with money.
oh, that's awesome. That's
It's so
awesome.
weird. So
Huh.
weird.
Oh,
And then they show the
it's
work
great.
like in museums. Yeah.
Right, yeah, because that's like the tax write-off is basically that the works become like property of the state and they can be used, as like, yeah, for museums,
Yeah.
which is really useful. It grows the culture, which I think that's one of the nice things that I've noticed about being here is that it's a very culturally active city. Like there's always
Yeah.
an exhibition, there's always something going on.
Oh, yes. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Um, but speaking of galleries also, what if someone wants to start working with a gallery? What do you recommend for them to do maybe before meeting the gallery or reaching out? What do you recommend?
I, I always think it's very better to go in person, like
Mhm,
with your portfolio. And I mean, some galleries prefer like you to send them an email with your work. But I think if they get to know you, or you get introduced by a friend, it's usually easier to go
mhm,
in
mhm.
than just
Right.
like sending them a message in Instagram. I mean, sometimes it works, but I think like I've noticed it works better when you get like introduced by someone. But what going back to the thing, I think you need your whole image like very well made, like your website, your portfolio, maybe I don't know, a couple of years work, like have like a not a voice, but have like your work has to have like some sort of unity. I think
Mm,
that you can see like, okay, this guy's he's a serious painter. It's not just like this guy just came out of school and wants to be famous, right?
right.
I think. I mean, but the gallery world is also very strange. Some galleries are just like not interested in anything, and some galleries are like very, very meticulous with how they get artists. And so yeah. But the thing
Yeah.
is just going and asking, right?
Yeah, that's true. You have to go in and ask, or else you'll
That's
never
the
know.
only yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. And then do you have any upcoming like shows or exhibitions or anything?
Well, not at the moment. I mean, at least not this year. I think right now I'm really just focusing on my work
Mhm.
in peace without
Yeah.
yeah, compromises. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point too, because I think sometimes, working with a gallery, it's great. But if you have to do like a say like a solo show or something, that's 20 paintings, and sometimes they only give you like 6 months or something, or
Oh
hopefully
yeah.
more than 6 months. And that can be a lot, especially if you're making paintings like the size that you're making, which are huge paintings. I think that would be very, very intense.
Yes. So and right now I'm just exploring this new subject. So I just want
Mhm,
to evolve them a bit more. And then I can release them to a show, or I'll see what I do with them. But yeah, at the moment I'm just
mhm,
a
mhm.
hermit.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, I wanted to know, what has it been like for you to go from like smaller paintings to bigger paintings? What's that transition been like?
Well, it's interesting. I remember all used to tell me, never make big paintings. They're like a pain in the ass. It's like it's very expensive to sell, very expensive to move, very expensive to create. But
Mhm,
in a way, it feels like you're doing something important. You know, if you work like in a big painting, it's just like tackling like this beast you want to just conquer. I don't know. But I
yeah.
like it. Like at the moment, I'm trying to make like just like huge, not huge paintings, but just bigger paintings. Because the thing is, like my reference is Odd, and he really makes huge paintings. So my
Mhm.
paintings, compared to his, are not that big. They're just like medium size. Odd Nerdrum's painting. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow. And medium size is still huge.
yeah,
So,
like 2 meters. Yeah,
yeah, which is a lot of space to fill. Um, and then I also wanted to know because,
yeah, yeah.
um, with Odd especially, like it's very funny. You ask Odd like, "Oh, where's your inspiration from?" He says he just gets images in his head, right? What about you? How do you find your inspiration?
Well, I think something very like similar, like to Odd's,
Hmm.
because I got asked. Sorry,
Mhm,
like I have had this question before, like where do you create these images? And I'm like, no, they just pop. Like,
mhm,
yeah. But it's because I'm always trying to like like develop my world, right? So
mhm,
I think if you know which world your characters belong to, it's easier to conceptualize like
mhm.
what could a new painting be within the laws of this universe, right?
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And it makes also sense with like with your work and how like they have these hats, right? Or they have like these specific clothes and
Yeah.
the places that they're in. Uh yeah, they have to I mean it is a little bit like how you said, like your own world and you're building it. You're like world building, literally, in your
Yeah,
work.
that's what I'm doing. And there's different subcultures and different, yeah,
Yeah.
countries, I would say. I don't know.
It's very Lord of the Rings.
Haven't read. Yeah, I know. Tolkien. Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, that advice came from Art. He always told me
Mhm.
that you have to create a world
Mm.
because that's how you can, in that way, you create like, this new paintings. I don't know if that makes sense, but he really works like that. Like he lives in this lost, this universe he
Mhm.
created, and then these characters are always like part of it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the technique varies. Right now, he's very loose. I think
Mhm.
back in the day, he was very like Caravaggio, as he calls it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but they're always like these people who could live in this reality, and I think that's what people should do. Like, I mean, even if it's abstract, there's laws within abstract. I think if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
You're
think
like,
it
what did
does.
he just said?
It's like, let's pretend. No, yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Um, yeah, because I mean, it's really funny because it's also like how you said, Odd's earlier work has this basically very similar, if not the same scenery as the one
Yeah,
he's making today. But the way he painted obviously changed, but you can still tell that it's an Odd Nerdrum, right? It's still
yeah.
his work. Yeah,
They live within this world he created. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
but that's
Yes.
yeah, people have to live in their own honest world,
Yes, in silence, in boredom.
in silence, in boredom. Yes.
Yeah, that's how you get there. Oh man. But yeah, do you have any like final advice for any artists out there who are looking to live from their work?
Yeah. Well, I think never be afraid to ask like advice. That's first, and to talk to galleries or clients or you know also know like it's very important to learn how to talk about your work.
Mm,
You have to make it interesting, right? That's what people want to know stories. They want to connect
yeah,
with what you're doing, but you have to explain it in the right way. Right? I think
right.
that would be a last advice, maybe.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great advice because, a lot of like marketing today, right? Marketing and branding and all these things. It's all about storytelling deep down. Like it is about like having a narrative and but not necessarily a false narrative, right? You still want to be honest with your collector, with the person who's like asking about your work. You still want to tell them like, oh, well, it's this, that, those. But it also helps to be clear, right? Like how you said, knowing how to talk about your work to
Yeah,
someone who
in your
asks about
life.
it and your life.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because people love painters. Like I've realized that they're like fascinated. Like, oh, you do nothing all day, just paint. And I'm like, yeah, I just paint. You get bored. I'm like, no. And but it becomes like the whole package, right? Like
Hmm.
you tell them of the work, and then they see like the way you live, and it just becomes interesting for them.
Hmm.
Like for me, it's just normal. Like I know painters live like this. It's just but people like that live in this 9 to 5 routine usually need like this escape, and painters usually
Right.
can create that, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's a different way of living when you're a painter because you're not escaping from anything. You don't have to escape from anything. Um, like it's a much more organic life in my opinion because you get up at whatever time, drink your coffee,
Mm,
maybe you sit outside and like, I don't know, feel the sun for a little bit and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna go work. It's like the way that Odd lives. It's like I want that, right?
yeah, yeah. Right. We all want that. It's just
Yeah,
such a nice life in the
it
sea.
is. Yeah, exactly. It's very natural. It's very
Yeah.
different from today's life, which is very much like go, 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 always be available, on your phone and like always
You know.
be around and stay up to date with the news and all of these things. It's too much. It's too
I
much.
love how he calls the phone the machine.
It is. It's the machine. Yeah. Same with
He
the
still
iPad.
calls it, right? Yeah, the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is a machine?
It is. It is. Yeah. It's a tiny machine that Big Brother is watching.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. So where can people find more of your work?
Well, it would be on my website. I think that's the easiest.
Hmm.
You can probably find the link somewhere.
Yes, I'll be adding all the links in the show
Yes.
notes. Yeah.
And my Instagram. That's yeah. Contemporary way of reaching me
Perfect. Well,
or knocking
thank you
my door.
so much. Oh yeah, that's another option. Yeah, if anyone's ever in Querétaro, yeah, they should hit you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Raul, for giving us some of your time and some of your really awesome advice.
Oh, pleasure is mine.